I realized very early in my career that I wanted to be a tech lead. The reason for it is because when I started working as a software engineer, I realized I was way more curious and engaged in team activities and team success. So I was that person in the team that was always curious about, okay, how do we align? Why are we doing the things that we are doing? I don't know, facilitating retro, taking those responsibility that comes, they call it like glue work, that kind of puts the team together.
Hello, Anemari, and welcome to Software Engineering Tales. I'm really glad that you could make it today.
Nice to meet you. Well, nice to see you, Pavel, because we've known each other for some time now, but it's the first time I see you face to face. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for the invite.
And I have first question already.
Okay.
How was your day today?
How was my day? Well, actually, a little bit busy. I've been. I started the year with a little bit of a cold, so it took me a bit to get back on track and back to work. So I'm trying to catch up on everything that I need to do. So yeah, a little bit busy, but it's good busy. So.
So how does your work, like everyday work, look like as a tech lead?
Well, I'm not a tech lead currently, so I used to be a
Okay.
tech lead. I'm now fully dedicating to working with other tech leads. Yeah, I can go into what the day of a tech lead look like, or what my current day look like right now. But
Let's
whatever you think.
let's do the comparison. I would like to hear about the day of the tech lead, and then we can just transfer to what you do right now, because that's pretty awesome too.
Okay, sure. I mean, as a tech lead, it's been a while since I've been a tech lead. I had multiple roles since then, but as a tech lead, my main day would go a lot on usually starting with a stand-up. I think that's the key part of the day to get alignment with your team. And then, of course, coding. I was doing in ThoughtWorks, where I was a tech lead, I was doing pair programming. So we were coding together all the time. I always had a pair. So there was some coding involved, and of course a lot of meetings. That means different types of meetings with the team, like planning or alignment, but also with stakeholders. In ThoughtWorks, as being a consultancy, we're always working with clients. So I had a lot of conversation with clients and stakeholders on the client side daily, making sure everybody's aligned and we're on the same track with the plan. So yeah, it's basically that. It's alignment, coding, meetings, and conversations with people.
Yeah, and where do you think is the line between like tech lead role and like a team lead role?
So that's a tricky question, I would say, depending on who you're asking. If you're asking me based on my experience, I've seen companies where the tech lead role and the team lead role are kind of overlapping. So it's kind of the same role, which is the position in which I was in ThoughtWorks, right? So I was dealing with both the technical side and both the people side, everything that comes from coding on a daily basis, but also dealing with performance reviews for people, feedback, one-on-ones, but also alignment with the stakeholders and anything that comes in between. And so I was doing an overlap, I would say, of the roles. I did work with companies that I train their tech leads, and I've seen that there are companies where the tech lead role it's more focused on the technical side, and the team lead it's more focused on like the people side, let's say. But in my experience, it's really hard to kind of put a boundary between the two, and I very often seen these roles clashing, because they don't have this proper conversation. Okay, where does my responsibility ends and yours starts? And so it requires a little bit of conversation between them to make sure it works. And I also seen teams where the team lead, it's actually the tech lead, they just call it team lead. And again, the responsibilities overlap. So I think it very much depends on who you're talking to, the culture of the company, and yeah, how what's their structure. But the key to making it work, I think, is just comes back to setting expectations, understanding what people expect from you and how you can fit into that.
Yeah. So let's stay a little bit with this example that you mentioned, that you have a team. There is a team lead. There is a tech lead on that team. So what should be the responsibility of each other, and how to make it work together?
Okay, so
like best practice. Sorry.
No, don't worry. Yeah, so just as a disclaimer, I don't think that, I see that as a complicated situation, right? I haven't seen it very often where you have both the tech lead and the team lead, even though they exist. But it's not as often. As I said, because of this problem, very often they get to the conclusion that a lot of the responsibilities overlap, or that if you have other roles like product manager or engineering manager, some of the things can also be distributed on these different roles, right? So with that in mind, I think regardless of what role we're talking about, in this case being the tech lead and the team lead, the key to be having effective collaboration comes to sitting down together and having that conversation and setting expectations, like actually understanding on, okay, what do you think your responsibilities are, what do I think my responsibilities are, and putting them on paper and actually discussing on, okay, how we're going to make sure we're not going to overstep each other, and how are we going to make sure that it's balanced, when we're basically having the same goal at the same time, which is helping the team move forward, right? So yeah, I think the secret is just it's setting expectations, sitting together, and making those decisions. So the reason that I'm saying this is because very often people think that they are in agreement, right? So they assume, okay, I know what I want, I know what I am supposed to do, and I know what the other is supposed to do, but they are not really aligned, because when you sit down and you ask them, you realize there's a lot of misunderstanding, let's say, and that's where conflict starts. And so I think it's about that, about setting the right expectations between them and constantly re-evaluating and making sure that those are enforced and that they stay the same.
And now, okay, let's say I'm senior software engineer. I am quite good at the technical side of the stuff. What do I need to do to become a tech lead?
Again, a tricky question. So in my experience, there are tricky conversations. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see with tech leads, and it's this, that there's a lot of unclarity around the role, right? Because each company kind of define its own expectations on what the tech lead are based on their needs. So when it comes back to your question on what does a very senior engineer technically needs to do in order to become a tech lead, in my experience is that they don't have to do much because usually companies actually promote or put in the tech lead position the person that is more senior or the best engineer in the team. Now, that's not necessarily the best decisions. Let's put it like that, because what happens is that people get into the tech lead role and they realize it's a lot about the other side, the people side, the managing people, the managing stakeholders, the alignment, and they weren't prepared for that. And so I think in order to jump, like what would I recommend people in order for them to set up themselves better for success in this role, it's to balance these skills, right? Like the technical skills with the soft skills. And when I'm talking about soft skills, I'm talking about this part of alignment, of building relationships, of facilitation, and feedback and conflict management. So a lot of those things that they are required in order for a team to function properly. And take a step back. This is going to require for them to take a step back maybe from tech, because it's just about you get better at what you focus on, and you have a limited time on the day, right? So if you want to get better at people, you have to focus on people. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Again, in order for them to reduce the risks to get into the role, which I very often see, like most of the people that I'm working with, they struggle because they are put in these positions of tech leadership, and they weren't prepared on what exactly it's coming. They think, okay, I'm gonna continue doing what I was doing until now because that's why I was put in this position, but that's not the case, as we very often see.
Let's take a step back. And I quite often read your newsletter, which is awesome, and I will add the link to the newsletter to the description of the episode. But because I read it quite regularly, I know that your path to tech lead role was kind of interesting. Could you tell the story?
Yeah, so I mean, the story is that I realized very early in my career that I wanted to be a tech lead. The reason for it is because when I started working as a software engineer, I realized I was way more curious and engaged in team activities and team success. So I was that person in the team that was always curious about, okay, how do we align? Why are we doing the things that we are doing? I don't know, facilitating retro, taking those responsibility that comes, they call it like glue work, that kind of puts the team together. I was very excited about achievements that we would get to as a team more than individual gain and deep diving into the latest tech, So I realized that the type of impact that I want to have, it's going in that direction. And if I want to be part of that, one way to do that would be to get into the tech lead role. So yeah, I realized early, and I was like, okay, so what do I need to start preparing for that role? Because I knew that I wasn't ready for sure, but I knew that there is a way to get there. If I'm intentional about it, it's going to be faster. So I started working towards it. Now, from that intentionality, I went to my manager at the time and I asked to be a tech lead. And they said, maybe in 10 years we can have this conversation. I didn't like the answer because I was expecting something in the lines of expectations or what do I need to improve. Some hope, I think, more than anything. And I felt like a little bit cut off there. So what happened is that I started looking around and I found a company, ThoughtWorks, which is an international consultancy company that created a growth plan for me. So I joined them. I moved to Spain to join them when they were just opening an office here in Barcelona. And from the beginning, I was very clear that I want to grow, right? And they kind of build up this growth plan for me, and that worked wondrously because in like 2 years I was already a tech lead.
That's cool. Let's move to your current role, or
Okay.
the stuff that you do right now, because you said that you are helping basically other tech leads or people that want to grow into that role. And I know that you are partnering with O'Reilly right now, and you have some online course, and you are about to publish a book. So if you could tell me more about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very passionate about the tech lead role and tech leadership in general. So a big part of my work, I work with individuals, senior engineers that are looking to develop their soft skills, tech leads, engineering managers that are struggling in their day-to-day. So that's a big part of my work. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And I've always been, as I said, I love the role. The thing is, the part that I missed in my journey as a tech lead is that I loved it so much and I put so much into it that I burn out in the role. So one of the things that I'm trying to do now is avoid and help others to avoid getting into that spot, as I know it can easily get there. So that's where my motivation comes from, and I use every channel that I get to make people aware of the skills that you need in the tech lead role and how you can avoid getting into that space and how you can develop the skills and put yourself in the right position for success. So yes, I made a partnership with O'Reilly. I created an online course on soft skills for tech leads specifically, and currently I'm writing the book for tech leads, leveling up as a tech lead with them. The main reason why I write the book is because I haven't found a book on tech leads, right? So there's a lot of books out there on engineering leadership in general. But usually tech leads and myself struggle to understand, okay, what from here applies to me from where I am. Which is very funny because the tech lead role, it's kind of the first point where a senior engineer gets, jumps into the people side, and it's very overwhelming. And there's now so many resources on how to do that transition effectively, specifically targeted on the tech lead role. So yeah, my idea with the book is to bridge that gap in the tech industry, and to create that resource that acts as a guide for these starting tech leads.
Yeah. And when you talk with people, basically, or with people who you mentor, what is the biggest bottleneck? What is the biggest struggle?
The biggest struggle for tech leads, you mean?
Yeah.
The biggest struggle is time management. I think it comes back to that. They have some expectations on how they should run their day based on what they were doing before becoming a tech lead. And that is a lot of coding. And they try to keep up those expectations, right? So they add the extra responsibilities of a tech lead on top of their daily coding. And it doesn't work, right? It's like the math doesn't add up. You don't have enough hours in the day to do everything. So very easily people get overwhelmed. And understanding how to manage their time. What do they need to let go of? What do they need to do less of in order to be able to fulfill the expectations that are on their role? That it's complicated. So getting to that balance and constantly chasing that balance, it's one of the things that I see people struggle most with. Even the people that I work with, this is the part that we work with and most on understanding, okay, what do I prioritize, and how do I make sure I'm focusing on the right thing for me and for my team at this point.
You also mentioned that as a tech lead, you did pair program with people on your team quite a lot. Where do you find the value in pair programming?
Well, quite a lot. We are doing it all the time. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that works. The culture was we are all pair programming with clients. So we are pair programming constantly. The value, I mean, people grow way faster. I think that's the biggest value that I see in pair programming. There are much more, but the first one that I've seen is that like when you have a team that it's composed of different levels, which I think it's how it's supposed to be, a tech team that has seniors and leads and juniors, and you want that team to be autonomous and work together. You also had this culture of you build it, you run it. So everybody, like we were taking care of all the stages of development of the product that we had. And so for that, you need a team you can rely on as a whole. So you need everyone to be able to be aware of everything that is happening in the product, not just, having one individual owning the front end and in order to kind of do this distribution of skills, the best way it's through pair programming, because you get access, you work on all the types of different skills. You have the transition of knowledge, so you always work with another person that maybe has some knowledge on that topic, which makes it work easier. You remove also a lot of pains from the process. So we are doing trunk-based development, which means like you're not reviewing PRs. And so pair programming was the way to check, right? Like you were always working with someone else to check that you have a second pair of eyes looking at the code. We're also doing the QA in pairs for the same reasons. And so these are some of the benefits, but like the growth and the transition of knowledge also, basically you don't have silos in the team, because even if someone is missing, you have the other person that is there and can easily take over and act as an anchor for the task. So I think there are a lot of benefits. I know there are different opinions when it comes to pair programming. I personally have to say that I think the benefits are definitely outweighing the pains, let's say. And yeah, it's one of my favorite ways to work.
Would you say that the capacity of the team to implement new features and stuff like that is about the same in this way of work, or is it lower, or is it higher?
The capacity. You mean the
Yeah,
speed
yeah.
or
So
the?
the speed. So the speed. Let's say you have some features you need to implement, and you know the opinion that I hear quite a lot is that okay, it's good to pair program, but we can't afford it as much because it will make the team overall, slower.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main controversial points when it comes to pair programming, right? So I think there is some truth to that, but it always comes with an asterisk, like a second. Your team is going to be slower. Well, depending how you look at it, because you're saying you have two people working on the same thing, right? When you can have two people working on two different things. But if you think about it on the long run, like I said, the knowledge sharing, which is way harder to do if you're not working together, you're gonna need some sessions. Then you have the part, like I was saying, with the trunk-based development that you were working together. So if not, you need some PR reviews, which means that time it's also extra because someone is gonna have to do it, right? And then there is the part of like the long term. So I think in the short term, it can definitely be seen as slower. Actually, one of the big struggles in Totros was advocating for this with our clients because of a lot of our clients weren't doing pair programming and they were saying exactly the same thing that you're saying, right? Why would we do this? And so one strategy that you used was like, let us show you, give us 2 months to show you how the speed is gonna be improved by it, and it's not gonna be affected negatively in any way. But we need some time, sorry, because in the beginning it takes harder to ramp up. That's true, right? Because in the beginning you're spending more time in the onboarding and getting together, and yeah, you can put it as you're losing time, right? So if you have a 1 month product or project, I can see how people might prefer just going in individually, because there is not so much alignment or so much, okay, what do we need to do extra, so much carrying of knowledge. But on the long run, pair programming, it's always going to pay off because of all the things that I'm sharing. So it's all about how you think about it. In the short term, you're saving time, but in the long run, you're saving way more time because of those benefits of the knowledge sharing and on the reducing on the process. So that's how I've seen it, and until now we've been able to convince the clients. I can tell you, like, they trust us. We've done it for 2-3 months, and they could see how easy it was to bring someone new in the team, and the onboarding was way faster. So everything, the process would streamline, but you need some time to completely incorporate and the benefits of it. I do believe that.
Yeah. We do it sometimes, for some more complex features, and especially like couple it with TDD and do it in a style like, I will write the test and you will write the minimum implementation and vice versa. And it's also fun at these times, but I always struggled to get the team to do that more. And I think, yeah, this is useful because you have a really compelling argument. So I will also use that in our team.
One advice that I have here, we're also doing TDD, and I mean that's another part that I like, but I'm happy to hear you're using it. One advice that I can give you here is that like I said, it takes a while to see the benefits. So one strategy that I used with my team or with clients was, can we try it for a bit? Like, just please, for me, Or we would have people, for example, I would go to a client and say, look, I don't know how to do this. And it would be very helpful if we'd sit down for like 3 days and work together on this task, kind of getting their expertise. This would also work very much because before people see the benefits, they need to get into it. And it's really hard to sell something that they haven't experienced, So this is something that I've seen work for me, kind of getting them into the flow.
Yeah. Other question though, like technical details. So were you doing it in a remote setup or was it in like on site in the office?
When I was a tech lead, I was most of the time on site, and then COVID happened and we went remote for a while. So a bit of everything.
So worked.
For the technical
Okay.
details for pair
I mean
programming.
the pair programming.
So at that time, I have to say that the tools for remote working weren't so evolved, right? So remote working made a little bit more complicated to pair program. Like if we would have people that would work from home, it might be a little bit more complicated. I remember we were using Zoom even at that time to pair program, or there were some tools that you could take control over someone's like screen. And it was working pretty well. I do believe that in the day-to-day, the tools are way more evolved and it's way easier to do it if you want to do it. It's not the same experience as face-to-face. Yeah, I think that's always the case because sitting next to someone on the desk, working on two screens and having that kind of switching keyboards, it's a kind of different experience, but I think it can definitely be done online also.
I basically I really like the tool from like JetBrains in IntelliJ. You have code with me, and you can give access to other person to work on even different files and everything like it's just your project, so you need to commit that.
So see, even the tools adapt to that because the value is there.
Yeah, the value is there and the need is there because, for example, we are like worldwide spread team, Czech Republic, Britain, Germany, India, and you get to work with people from all around the world. Okay, what would you say personally that is the biggest challenge or the biggest, maybe even danger in a software engineering as general industry today?
The biggest danger in the software engineering industry today.
Or the biggest challenge,
I mean, the biggest challenge I think is the same as always. How do you stay relevant and how do you keep building a product that works while staying on track with what's happening on the technology side, on the business side, on the development side? I think that's the biggest challenge. And now it's AI, but in the past has been other different challenges that we had to ramp up with, and it took a while. I feel like every 10 years or there is this new thing that we have to learn and adapt, and so I think that is the challenge, that we constantly have to adapt, and things change faster a little bit in tech, I think, than in other industries. So that is why the challenge might be a little bit bigger. It's like you cannot get comfortable because something new it comes and you have to again learn and adapt. So having that balance between not jumping on the new shiny things, but still, keep it on the day to day, because it's hard to incorporate the new technologies or change everything. I think that's the continuous challenge.
Yeah, and I think the balance is really important because you have your day to day job, then you want to learn new stuff. You have also like life coming in, maybe family, maybe other things. So how do you keep that balance? Not to burn out, but still, learn something new every week.
I mean, I think it's all about the goal, and this is a question that I often get from the people that I work with. I think it all comes back to the goal. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because just learning for the sake of learning, what's the point in that? It's like, I just want to be better. For what? So the reason that I'm saying this is because I've very often seen that when people define that why, like, why is it? Because I want to make sure that I can get another job tomorrow, because I want to stay relevant, because I want to learn this thing because it's cool and fun. What I'm trying to say is that the goal would change your strategy, right? Because it's not like what you said. Why do you need to learn something every week? Maybe you take a week off and you spend it on learning this thing that you've been planning to do for a while just because you've been wanted to, or it's fun. Or you learn how to incorporate some new technology that you've been wanting to learn in your day-to-day work. Like you get your team excited about it, you do a knowledge sharing session on it. So I'm a big fan of learning on the job. I have to say that. I do think our time is limited, and in order to stay sane in the long run, we need that time off, so I'm a fan of doing the most of and taking the most of the day-to-day job, or learning how to bring new stuff in, or learning as much as we can from the things that we are working on. So I have to put that as a disclaimer, because my strategies go in that direction. But there are different other ways that people prefer. Like, for example, I know a lot of people that do side projects, but like I said, for me, it takes a toll. And it's always important to define your goal, to have a timeline for how long I'm going to be doing this, what do I want to get out of it, how do you measure progress, and not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, I just want to know more. That's where people lose it, and they get overwhelmed, and they're like always feeling like it's not enough, and it's not, enough knowledge or fast enough, because they don't have any way of measuring it.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice, I would say. Yeah. And it changes your perspective when you think about it.
Exactly.
One question that I ask everyone on this podcast. Tell me about one time that you really messed up and how you learned from that.
Okay, I have a lot of examples there. Let me choose one. Okay, one time I have actually from when I was a tech lead. So what happened? We had to make this decision with the client, or a technical solution that we wanted to move forward with. And I remember, like, our team was on ThoughtWorks side. We wanted to go a different way than the client side, but we had to agree, right? And we had this time pressure. We had to make a decision really fast to start working on it, and we just couldn't agree. So the mistake that I've done at that point is that I was very focused on making sure everyone is on board, or has a say in the decision, and it's getting on board with the decision, and it's part of it. So what am I saying? Why do I'm saying this? Is because my mistake was involving everyone and not moving and not making a decision, because I was really wanted to make sure that everybody is aligned. So the client wouldn't give up, and the team wouldn't give up, and there was this back and forth. Now, my mistake was that I was continuously doing this back and forth. I was going to the client trying to explain. I was going to my team trying to get them decided, and so the decision was clear from the beginning. I mean, we didn't have much leverage. We needed to go with what the client wanted because of the time pressure. I just wasn't feeling comfortable to make that choice for my team. So we got to the time pressure. I had to make the choice. I made the choice, but in the wrong way, because I did all of this back and forth, made my team believe that they actually had more control than we actually had. And so I made a decision. What happened after? Of course, my team was very disappointed, very angry, but not so much about me making the decision as much of me dragging them through all of this pain, right? So they were like, if you had just told us from the beginning we had to go with this, like, why going through all of this, pain and suffering? And that's when it rang a bell for me. I got a big learning out of that, which was sometimes you just have to make the decision for your team and live with it, and explain it to them, and it's gonna be way easier to get them on board than just trying to make them get on board, because sometimes the decision just it doesn't make sense for everyone, and that's okay. And you can get compromise even if people don't agree, which was this case. People were like, I'm just tired of talking about it. Let's just go with it. We run it. We know how to do it, So that was a big mistake. Like I said, I did disappoint my team, and I had to have a lot of conversation after, and one-on-ones, and explaining and apologizing and listening to them complaining. But I took it. I knew I'm gonna have to do that work, and it turned out perfectly with a great learning. So
that's some lesson learned, right? Okay, let's wrap up. One last question: if there should be just one thing that people listening to us should take home with them, what it should be?
Oh, that's very broad. Should it be like, I guess, I mean, I know your audience. It is people in tech, and the people that want to grow and develop. So if we're thinking about those area of people, I think one piece of advice that I would have is that one thing that is very important and a lot of people miss out on when it comes to their growth in their tech careers is that they don't make their work visible. So I'm saying this because I know we're talking about it here and there, but this is one of the biggest problem that I'm tackling in every day with people that I work with, which is that they don't know how to make their work visible, how to make sure they're delivering value, and how to make sure that the work is impactful and seen by people. So yeah, just focus on that and try to challenge every task or everything that you're doing to actually understand if it's bringing value to who and how you can make it more visible. So to wrap it up, as much as time as you spend in doing a task, double the time on spending on making that task visible.